Hello. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hi there.
Nice to see everyone.
Wow.
This is welcome to another episode of Galley Gab Fest. I'm Virginia Stanley, and I'm joined here with my colleagues Lainey Mays and Grace Caternolo, and we have a really special program for you today. The first half of the program, we will be joined by a very special guest, legendary historical novelist Philippa Gregory, who will be here to talk about her forthcoming book, BOLEYN TRAITOR, which is coming out in October 2025. And then we'll be hearing from HarperAudio Creative Director Suzanne Mitchell, and she's going to talk about some forthcoming audiobooks, as well as some inside baseball on how audiobooks make their way from page to author to audio. So it's going to be a great hour, and we're going to dive right in. So without further ado, we'll bring on Philippa Gregory.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm very pleased to be with you.
We're thrilled that you're here. Thank you so much. This is an honor, and we'll waste no time and get right into this. So, Lainey, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah. Thank you again for being here. I know when the book was announced to everyone on the sales force here at Harper, you should have been in the room because everyone was so excited. And I know all of our librarian readers are very excited to hear about not only a new book from you, but kind of a return to some of the topics in the past. So I'm going to do a quick bio, and then I want you to tell us more. So Dr. Philippa Gregory studied history at the University of Sussex and was awarded a PhD by the University of Edinburgh, where she is a regent and was made alumna of the year in 2009. I can read. Philippa is a member of the Society of Authors, and in 2016 was presented with the Outstanding Contribution to Historical Fiction Award by the Historical Writers Association. And that is just a snippet of your amazing bio. And we have the new book, BOLEYN TRAITOR, coming October 14th. So I'm going to hand it to you to tell our viewers a little more about the book. Anything you want them to know?
I think for me, one of the most interesting characters in the Boleyn Tudor court is the wife of George Boleyn, Jane, who gets the reputation, not at the time, but about 20, 30 years after her death, gets the reputation for being one of the witnesses to her husband and sister-in-law's incestuous relationship, and is part of the evidence that therefore takes Anne and George Boleyn to their deaths. So she starts really with her reputation completely blackened. And the reason that I think that happens, there's many good reasons for it, but partly it's because subsequently she's involved in the annulment of the marriage of Anne of Cleves, where she gives evidence, and finally she's involved in the accusation to Catherine Howard of adultery, which leads to Catherine Howard's death. So she's basically in place at the divorce of two queens, the execution of two queens, divorce of three queens, and the execution of two. So it's a pretty extraordinary record for a Tudor courtier. And if she had been a man, there would have been a zillion biographies about her. You can be absolutely sure of that. But because she's a woman, the paradoxes and the contradictions in her life are always put down to her being mad, or her being sexually hyperactive, or her being terribly mistaken. Women's history is always explained away, whereas men's history is genuinely investigated. And only really in our own time, only very, very recently, have historians taken any trouble to investigate what she was really doing at these various extraordinary incidents in an extraordinary life. And from their work, I've been able to fictionalize this character, looking at what most probably really happened and describing it as a fiction.
Yeah, they love to put on the, well, you're crazy and wave it away, but there's so much. I can't imagine what's been lost to history of all these women's stories where they do that. So you're doing fantastic work giving a voice to those women. So I'm curious to know why return to the Tudor court. I don't know if you want to speak more about that, or if you're like, oh, it's just time. I don't. If there's not any more story, then you just missed it. That's fine. But if there's anything to,
I mean, the Tudor court is full of interesting stories, full of interesting women, and literally, she's been on my mind for a long, long time. Particularly since there's a very good biography by the historian Julia Fox, and when that came out and I read that, that seemed to me the turning of the tide for Jane Boleyn's reputation. So I went, at last, someone has done some serious research, not starting from the assumption that she is, mad or bad, but starting from the assumption that she is, as we assume with men, doing the best that one can in the circumstances. So that gave me a really increased my interest in her. You couldn't possibly write about the execution of Anne Boleyn, her sister-in-law, without wondering what part she played in that. And we now have more evidence than we did before that she probably played no part in it at all, except trying to save her husband, in which she was not successful. But then what was really interesting for me as well was the realization that Thomas Cromwell had this big, effective spy network and management network, and that it's almost certain, it seems to me, that he recruits Jane into this network because she returns to court straight after the disgrace of her husband and sister-in-law, and returns to court as literally top position. She is Jane Seymour's chief lady in waiting, and she is at Jane Seymour's deathbed, a position of extraordinary trust and importance. And there's nobody could have got that job for her but Thomas Cromwell. And so I'm pretty sure that he puts her in place as a spy in all of the subsequent queens. And it's therefore his escape plan that she proposes to Anne of Cleves when Henry wants divorce from Anne of Cleves. So she's very, very important, but as a spy, we don't have any record of her. So it's very much piecing together a hidden life.
well, maybe she's a very good spy, because if you don't know anything, you were very successful.
Exactly. No,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
That's why we don't know about Cromwell's spy network, because they're extremely
right.
efficient. We know a lot more about, say, Walsingham's spy network, because as an agent of state, he's got a lot more reputation, and the records are kept. But
Mm,
Cromwell is literally setting up his spy network to service him as an agent of state before that's really established as an office.
yeah, it's fascinating. So I'm really curious about just research in general. So when you go to start writing, what's your go-to thing to start with, or do you find, things are uncovered as you look? What's the process, and how do you, kind of a two-parter, separate fact and fiction when you're writing your own story?
Um, Well, I'm conscious I'm speaking to librarians. Of course, you start with the library and you start with the written records and you start with what's available and what historians have written before me. And writing in this period in particular, I have spent so many years of my life working in the Tudor period that I don't need to, as it were, start from scratch. I've got files and files of notes, and uh, I've got that enormous advantage now of, like, I know stuff. It's a question of remembering it. It's not a question of finding it. So there's that real sense for me of comfort in the Tudor Plantagenet period, that I'm familiar with, the castles and the layout and the food and the journey and the map. There's a real sense for me that Tudor Plantagenet England is a familiar place. So that's really very helpful. But then always, there's always things that you think you know about that you're not entirely sure about, that you have to check up. And that's very detailed research that I do as I go along. But the vast body of the research on all the characters in the story, I will do before I start writing. And then when I know when I have a sense of mainly it's the narrational voice. So, like, for years now, I've done my historical fiction in first person present tense. When I feel that I've got her voice, it's always a woman. When I feel I have her voice and I can almost hear her in my mind, that's when I know I'm ready to start writing. So when I've read and read and read and read and been to a lot of places and walked around a lot of gardens and visited a lot of castles, then I go like, I know the sort of person I'm talking about. And when I feel familiar with her, that's when I'm comfortable to start work.
I love that. Yeah. Oh, Brittany, you're muted.
Sorry, I was muted. This is fascinating. We talked about a few things before, and Philippa, you've talked about that historical fiction has two dates, which is really sort of interesting. I'm wondering if you could talk about that a little bit, and also the politics behind your books.
I think historical fiction has at least two dates, sometimes more, that you have the date of the setting of the novel, and that's pretty clear in my books because it's usually at the top of the chapter, so the location and the date is really, really clear. This novel was particularly detailed in that there's two experiences of trials that lead to a death sentence, and so they're very well recorded by the Tudors themselves. So in the case of Anne Boleyn's arrest in the May, and in the case of Catherine Howard's arrest also, it's very detailed. So I don't just do the date of it in terms of the year, but I actually do the month, and in some occasions the day of the month. It's possible to get very, very tight into the historical record, which I think is a real plus for lovers of history. And it's a real plus for me because you suddenly realize how quickly, when Henry moves, how fast he moves and how terrifying that would be at the time. So there's that date, which is the date of the setting, but every historical fiction has a sort of concealed other date about it, and that's its vintage, if you like. It's the date that it was made. And if you read, as I have done and still do occasionally, the great historical novelists of the boom period of the 1940s and 50s, the Anya Seatons and Georgette Hayes and Jean Plaidy, all of them, you cannot pick up a book without realizing the sort of date that it's written, because what they think women are capable of, the historical sources that they are drawing on, what they think, what they want to say about sex, what they don't want to say about sex, what they want to say about authority, what they want to say about class, particularly. It's a very deferential period of writing. You get this really intense 1950s sort of post-war flavor from these novels. And you could tell at once that you were reading, for example, there's one, Jean Plaidy, which is about Catherine of Aragon. And then there is my book, The Constant Princess, which is about Catherine of Aragon. And they draw on the same historical sources, but they are completely different books, because what I think a Tudor queen can do and what Jean Plaidy thinks a Tudor queen feels and can do, it's a generation apart, but it's the generation of the authors. It's not of the characters. And so my book is written very much at a time where I am, like so many other people, concerned about the rise of, what people generally call strong men, though I think they're generally not strong, but the rise of tyranny in so many major powers in the world, and the way that populist politics encourage this idea that what we want is a strong leader to increase his power at the expense of democratic institutions, in the hope that that gives us some sort of stability or profitability. And that seems to me intensely dangerous and very, very worrying for us now. But also you can see it occurring through time so clearly. So Henry VIII is clearly a tyrant who uses the democratic institutions of his country to take the law against the people. So he uses the law against, say, Thomas More. He He uses the law against Anne Boleyn. He uses the law against all of the wives that he turns out, changing the law when necessary to do so. And it's a very, very contemporary fear, and in that sense, a very contemporary message. And at the very end of the novel, I'm not spoiling it at all to tell you that Jane Boleyn realizes that all her life she has been trying to be successful in the court of a tyrant against whom, or even with whom, you could never be successful, because whatever you do, he's always going to want more, and you can never satisfy a narcissist, as I believe Henry VIII was, and a tyrant, as I believe Henry VIII was. And what she says is that you have to say no. That the message that Jane Boleyn tells the reader at the end of the novel is that you cannot wait for the tyrant to come for you, because by then it's too late. You have to say no.
There are many comments, much love in the chat here.
Thank you.
People are so thrilled, been reading your books for over 30 years. And somebody said 2 dates is a fascinating concept and so true. And I don't know if, see, we probably have time for just a few more minutes before we move over to, somebody said like the connections to present day. We have a comment here from Bridget Cairns, who says, thank you, Philippa, for straightening out the history of the War of the Roses for me. Constantly mixed up in history classes, your book and TV series, The White Queen, got me on the right path. I can never thank you enough.
Thank you. I'm very glad that helped. I think the secret to understanding the Wars of the Roses is to understand that it's basically a standoff between rival mothers for their sons. And once you get that in your head, then all the other titles and the names of the men and the battles, it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who wins the individual battles. What matters at the end is whether it's Margaret Beaufort's son on the throne, Henry Tudor, or whether it's Elizabeth Woodville's son on the throne, the Prince in the Tower. So it's literally, by excluding women from history as it is usually written, you make it immensely confusing. When you put the women back in, it gets clearer.
I want that on a t-shirt or like a bumper sticker, like women in history make things simpler. I love that. I love that. Yeah. Anything else?
So we are at the 2:20 mark. I do want to mention your website, and folks should go to it. And I think we're going to put that in the chat because there's so much and it's so wonderful. And as evidenced by the comment from Bridget before. So thank you so much for, all that you've done and your contributions and such thought-provoking work and so well researched, and we could go on, but we want to also talk a little bit about audio. It's a little bit after 20 after 2. And I think we should probably jump in if we have, unless there are any other questions, and if there are, or Philippa, is there anything else that you want to say? I want to keep you on for a little bit if you don't mind, and just speak with Suzanne Mitchell, our creative director at HarperAudio, to talk about some audios and how it works between the UK and the US, which is sort of fascinating. But if there are any questions along the way, please let us know, viewers, and Lainey, Grace, and of course Philippa, if you have anything else you'd like to say. We are here.
I am curious what you're working on next, if you can tell us, and if you can't, then I totally get that too.
I have 2 projects running simultaneously, which is creates a little bit of tension because they're both on deadlines. So I'm working quite hard at the moment. I'm starting a new novel which will be published next year. And I can tell you that it's going to be about, it's the Plantagenets. It's back to the Plantagenets. It's about Eleanor Cobham, who was the wife of Humphrey, Duke of Gloucester. And she is of extraordinary interest because she was tried and condemned with evidence of being a witch. So she is one of the very, very few royal women who were accused of witchcraft. what's really fascinating to me is in the case of Eleanor Cobham, although it's undoubtedly politically motivated, it's an attack on her husband as much as on her. There is really, really, really strong evidence to suggest that she was trying to prophesy the death of her little nephew, the King of England, which isn't very pleasant of her, and that they produce a wax effigy with an attempt to, what's suggested as an attempt to kill him. So she has a couple of accomplices who help her in making these fatal spells, and I think she probably did it. And of course, this is at a time where people have a genuine belief that that you can make magic to change things. So putting oneself in that mindset, which goes like, here I have this extraordinary weapon, which if I have the courage to use it, will mean that I become Queen of England. You know, it's a very, very interesting question. So I'm working on her. And the other thing I'm working on is a play based on the White Queen, Lady of the Rivers, and the Red Queen. So a War of the Roses play, which I'm hoping is going to come out in a theatre next year in England.
Oh,
And
I
that's been
can't wait.
filling.
That's
Yeah.
fabulous. Thank
Yeah.
you
That's
for sharing
exciting.
that.
Yeah.
I do want to get to our audio, but I can't not ask this question of Gina. Oh my God. And then at some point, we're just going to have to go. Somebody wants to make a t-shirt of that quote. It's very funny. Gina asks, I want to know if there's a recommended reading order, chronological perhaps, because I always jump around within all different series, but I'm curious to hear Philippa's thoughts on how she would recommend readers approach her many books. And then we'll go to audio.
Okay, well, I didn't write them in chronological order, so I don't blame you if you don't read them in chronological order. They're all supposed to be, and they all are standalone. So you could just read one and enjoy it as a sort of solo thing. But then if you want, I know a lot of people like a long series. So the earliest one so far is Lady of the Rivers. Which is about Jacquetta, Duchess of Luxembourg, and she is at the start of the War of the Roses. She's present in England at the start of the War of the Roses. And then after her comes her daughter, the White Queen. After her comes the daughter, the White Princess. No. In between comes Kingmaker's Daughter, which is about Anne, the wife of Richard III. And I'm not even going to attempt to run you through the subsequent. So that's the Plantagenets, and then we get on into the Tudor court. And sometimes they overlap. So for instance, Boleyn Traitor, my next book, overlaps, for instance, with both the other Boleyn girl, with the Boleyn inheritance, and with the last Tudor. So because I'm writing about different characters in history, they often occur in each other's books. That's the joy of it for me. But it's more like a jigsaw puzzle than ducks in a row. So you can start really whenever you like. But I list in all of the novels, the historical novels, the chronological order that you can read them in. So if you want to read them in chronological order, there you are.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. All right. And now there's a fabulous jacket. Oh, so wonderful.
Yeah.
I worked on this with the jacket designer, and we literally started off with the joint decision that we didn't want anything that looked like a historical fiction novel as they are currently conceived. We wanted something very, very different. And we start off with this very striking face. And I wanted her to wear a mask because the theme of masking and disguising and being untrustworthy, being two-faced, goes right the way through the novel. So that got us, as it were, the top half. And then she found this wonderful dress, which we named amongst ourselves the Beast Dress. And it's like a crinoline, so it's a bit wider than it would be at the time, but it's the skirt of a dress, and it's made of the heads, the skulls, the bones of hunted creatures. And like, I can't tell you what the metaphor, what that's supposed to mean. I just looked at it and I went like, that's just what we want. And the jacket designer said to me, I love it. Are you not afraid it's too gothic? And I went like, this is a very dark book. Let's go gothic.
It's really arresting.
Mhm.
I love that it's color and then it's black and white too. But there's really, it's pretty beautiful. Pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you. We're very excited about it.
Yeah,
But
So, okay, thank you. We're now going to bring in Suzanne Mitchell and Philippa, if you can stay with us for a bit more, because I know
Sure.
that Suzanne would like to talk a little bit about um, uh, audio, HarperAudio, UK audio, and how that all works. And then we'll bid you adieu, and then we'll focus on some forthcoming audiobooks from HarperAudio US. So Suzanne, hi.
Hi, it's nice to see you all.
yes, I'm lucky enough to be in the office right next to her, so we're gonna just do this together.
Perfect.
A little higher, sorry, I have to crouch down. That was such an interesting discussion with Philippa. I have to say the narration that she gave to Normal Women, I found so powerful. The content was powerful, and combined with her passionate and engaging storytelling just elevated it to the point where I couldn't stop listening to it. I needed to keep driving because I didn't want to give it up. It was so beautiful. And I told her earlier that she needs to read all the audiobooks because she's a beautiful reader.
Yeah, you're very kind. I'm very conscious that I'm not an actor, and when you hire a really great actor to do, particularly a fiction, they bring a different feeling to each character. So I was confident about doing Normal Women because that's a history book, and the narration is by the historian me. So what we did with that was that I was the chief narrator, and when there was, for example, a diary of, say, an Elizabethan woman or a letter from somebody, we used actors to voice them. And it was a thrilling process to do. I realized in the course of it that the audio books are actually a genuine art form of their own and adjacent to, but quite different from the published book. And seeing the care that we all put in on Normal Women, the audiobook, it inspired me to then go and listen to other audiobooks, which I hadn't done before. And I'm now a massive audio fan, so I am driving everywhere with audio. As opposed to, I'm sorry to say, I used to drive everywhere listening to the BBC, my beloved BBC. So I'm currently unfaithful to the BBC in favor of audiobooks.
Your secret's safe.
Yeah,
With
Not
everybody.
anymore.
yeah.
Not anymore.
And the audio award, do we want to say it was nominated for
Yes.
Normal Women was
We're
nominated?
nominated for an Audie on our side, and it was, I don't remember who won, but I know that Normal Women should have won.
Well, thank you. It was, I mean, it's as a history book, it is really quite standalone amongst my usual works because usually I write historical fiction, but it seemed so important to me to do a long reach history book. So it's 900 years of the history of women in England. Starts with the invasion of William of Normandy in 1066, goes right the way up through to the 1960s. And nobody else can really write that something that long because in history, in universities, you're very much a historian of the period. The idea of being a historian of all time is completely out of fashion. So you're a medieval historian and you'd write about medieval women and you'd write wonderfully about medieval women, but you wouldn't dream of writing about the suffragettes, for instance. Whereas because I'm not an academic specialist at a university, I am free to range across the centuries. And that gave me terrific insight into how women advance and how women are pushed back in different periods of history, because the same process happens each time there's a plague or a war or a disaster. Women get into public life, get into business life, get into opportunities. Whenever the troops come home or the economy recovers when we get pushed back out of the economy again. And that seemed to me the only way you would observe that is if you did a long, long history. And you can see that what happens to women at the time of the plague, 1349, is exactly the same as happens to women when the men come home from the war in 1918.
I think that's also why the audio was so successful, because it's so organic within you, and brings together, you know, not only the novelist in you, but the historian, and having someone like an actor, which, you know, we usually do for fiction. It works so brilliantly to have you read. So
Thank you.
you have terrific producers over there in the UK.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
we
really
were
do.
talking.
I really do. Yeah. I'm
Yeah, we
looking
were
very
talking.
much,
I'm
sorry.
sorry.
I'm
No.
looking forward to seeing what we're doing with BOLEYN TRAITOR, which is going to have a female actor to read the first person narrator. And we were talking about it today. I was talking with the audio producer today, and I went, what you can't have is a neutral narrator's voice, because this is an unreliable narrator. It's the story of Jane Boleyn is told by Jane Boleyn, and she says, I do this and I felt this, and in that sense, she's completely reliable because she is saying what she is and does, but she's completely unreliable in that her opinion of the court changes dramatically as she goes through her life.
You know, the other thing I found fascinating, Philippa, I feel like I'm just speaking to you alone, so forgive me, everyone else. When you're talking about the moment when you hear the person's voice, when you hear Jane's voice or whatever, it happens the same with me. When I'm going to cast and produce an audiobook, there is a moment when if it's the way things typically go, I'm reading it and I hear it. All of a sudden I hear the voice, I know who it has to be. So even though, you know, it's a different praxis, it's the same mechanism. And I feel like it goes to the creative process. And it's fascinating to me that those two things, you're in your world, I'm in mine, you know, they kind of overlap at some point, and that's where the resonance happens, and that's when something is special, like your book.
Thank you. Yes, I agree absolutely. And I think especially the way I write historical fiction, first person present tense, the narrational voice is part of the fiction. And it's so important to me that when I'm writing, I am not really me writing, I am the character. There is a kind of puppetry almost that comes about it. I feel that I am not writing my opinions of her or her world. I am her. I am impersonating her for the duration. So it's very like acting anyway.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, it all comes together now, why it is, you know, why that works so well. So
I mean, I think it does work very well as an audiobook, because if you have an actor who can, in a sense, get herself, roll herself in, get herself into the role, then you are literally reproducing the effect of reading, which
no,
is
that's true. Yeah.
ideal. Yeah.
Well, I love Suzanne. Thank you so much. This is exactly what we were hoping for, to have just some sort of, you know, organic, natural conversation between you and Philippa, between both of you, because there's, you know, there's so much nuance, and it's so beautifully expressed between you and between both of you. And I don't know, I just think we could go on. We're anxiously awaiting the announcement of the narrator for BOLEYN TRAITOR, but we can't just yet. So perhaps, Philippa, maybe we'll have you back. We were very generous and said, I'll come back. So we hope that you do.
Well,
We have
come
it on
back. I'll be
film.
very happy. I'll
We
come
have it
back.
on film.
I can tease you that it's a well-known actor, and I think everyone's going to be very excited with who it is. But
Yay.
I can't say yet.
Okay, but we'll take you up on your offer and have you come back once that is out there in the world. Thank you so much, Philippa, for taking the time to talk with everybody today about your forthcoming book, BOLEYN TRAITOR, comes out in October. We're so excited. This is an honor for us and for, I can speak for people who are watching, which are many, to have you here to speak with us, to take the time. It's really, to say it's a treat is an understatement. Thank you so much.
It's
And
it's a real pleasure for me, and I'm not just being English and polite about this. Honestly, I think libraries are the repositories of culture, and in difficult times, people go to the libraries to learn and for safety, and as a starting point for a journey. And in difficult times, sometimes what you want is an internal journey in which you are consulting other people's thoughts and thinking your own thoughts. And so, I mean, I think librarians are literally an emergency service. They are for me anyway. So, you know, it's a pleasure to talk to librarians always.
thank you. Thank you so much. I think we're getting dewy-eyed here.
I know.
Now I see another t-shirt. Beautiful, beautifully said. And the reaction here is just great admiration, appreciation for your kind words and love.
I just want to say there's a comment. Librarians love you, Philippa. So
Well, I love you too. This is, you know.
All righty. Well, we'll wrap up with you and but you are in our hearts, and we will be back in touch and hopefully have another conversation with you again about audio. And speaking of audio, now we'll switch over to Suzanne. So Philippa, much love, much appreciation for
Thank you so much.
your wonderful
thank you.
Thank you.
words.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Wow. That was pretty cool.
I never wanted it to end.
Me
I
too.
know. That's
Me too.
amazing. I swear to God, I'm like, I'm gonna cry. Don't cry, don't
I
cry.
know.
Bite the
That was
inside of
so
your mouth.
beautiful.
She's
Ugh.
lovely. Wow, God.
Yeah. I want to
And
break.
Suzanne, that
I'm
was
in office.
fantastic. Thank you. I mean, we just sort of wanted to, not have her.
I
Hi,
had to break
Grace.
the illusion. I'm sorry.
No, you can get back there, Grace. For God's
Yeah.
sake. Come
The
on
camera's
back
getting
there.
crowded. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no,
No.
it's
No, you guys
I
are great.
actually really love that you're in the same room with us because I feel like
I
it's
know.
kind of a little watch party.
Yeah. So we have time. Listen, we all know we don't have to do a hard stop at 3, but we do want to be respectful of people's time. And this is, pretty much how we thought it would go. And so this has been absolutely perfect. But Suzanne, your wonderful words, and you're just sort of, stitching together Philippa's talk with audio. Love that. And you have talked to us about audiobooks forthcoming that you're just crazy about, and you had Lainey and I writing down, scribbling crazy fast about everything that you said. So can you just take us through some of the forthcoming audiobooks or books that are just audiobooks that are out? Tell folks what you want them to know. Give them the heads up.
Well,
Don't have to go in this order. We just have some slides. So
Oh, okay. So today the hot topic on in my inbox is the upcoming Joe Hill book. Am I allowed to talk about that one?
Sure.
Okay, I'm
Yeah,
gonna tell you
we
all about
do.
it. So
there we go.
there it is. There is Mr. King Sorrow, who's slightly terrifying. I told the editor when I started reading it, I was having nightmares because he's pretty creepy. So it's an interesting audiobook in that the structure comes through as fairly straightforward at the beginning. And then as you're working your way through the story arc, King Sorrow himself comes in, and Joe kind of weaves his little narrative just like a snake through this incredible story arc. And then to make things even more complicated, there are these sort of visions or pieces that kind of are set apart from the narrative arc itself. So those involved a very different production. So we have the straightforward arc that's going to be read by a fabulous narrator by the name of Ari Fliakos, very well known in the horror category. He's a brilliant, brilliant narrator and actor. And then we've engaged Ian Shaw, who is the son of Robert Shaw. Robert Shaw played Quint on the movie Jaws. And he recorded 2 days ago, so it's really good. So we're taking he's narrating the voice of King Sorrow, and we will cut his audio into Ari's. And the goal here is to not only have a different voice and set up for the serpent himself, but in these moments, I'm playing with the idea of changing the audio quality a little bit, so it starts to be not painful, but maybe a little uncomfortable, so that you kind of feel this King Sorrow and his slimy scariness as something set apart from Ari. And then these 10 pieces that I'm calling audio dramas, we're going to produce as full productions. There are actors to reenact every line. It'll sound like a movie, full sound design, the works. So it'll be interesting. I think it's going to be very exciting, and I hope people look forward to it. I mean, Joe is a huge audio fan, and he's so much fun to work with because he always has great ideas, and he's just terrific.
I have a question for you. Do you feel like listening to like horror on audio is way creepier and immersive of an experience than like reading it on the page?
Oh, it is for me.
Yeah,
It is for me.
that.
It's actually haunting.
Yeah. It's in your ears, literally.
It's
Yeah.
in my ear, and I'm one of these, I don't know if other people appreciate audio in this way, but when I listen to something, it becomes a thing in my head. You know,
Yeah.
it exists. And it's a world that's created. It's a world that I go back to sometimes if I'm feeling, you know, I don't know, nostalgic. I might go back and listen to the Dutch House because Tom Hanks reading, like, all I need to do is hear the beginning of that book and I'm right back. And I have a feeling as I've aged that I've learned that I'm never alone in these feelings. So I'm going to bet that other people have the same experience.
Ooh, if you have one that you revisit in the world, write it in the chat. We'll read it.
Oh, that's a good idea. I'm
Yeah.
always asking the audio fans what
Someone
they're
said-
listening to.
Tom Hanks is also just perfect.
That's
He's
true.
kind of perfect. Yes, he is quite perfect and fun. to
And
work
for
with.
anybody going to ALA in Philadelphia, Joe Hill is going to be a speaker there on Monday,
Lucky people.
June 30th, from 10:30 to 11:30. So do check that out if you can. But that is very, very interesting behind the scenes.
Behind the scenes, you know, people, it seems like because audio is so popular, we are the fastest growing format in publishing. There's always interest, like what's new, what's going to happen. And those moments are exciting for sure, but I still really love pure storytelling. I don't think I'll ever get rid of that. And I do think that not every audiobook has to have bells and whistles. The successful audiobooks can exist with just a single narrator, depending on the talent and their connection to the material.
Maybe.
Oh yeah,
That one?
that one was so good. So I directed Marin Ireland reading Nothing to See Here, and at the very end of the recording, we got to the last page, and it was so moving. Like there was a moment we couldn't even. Marin's in her booth, and I'm at the talk back, which is the way I communicate with her, and we were both crying. We both looked up and we were like tears in our eyes because it really just, you know, we connected so deeply with the material and her hobby, for me, her narration. So yeah, those moments are pretty extraordinary. I wish I could share those moments with people, but all I can do is share the audio, which isn't a bad thing.
It
but
comes through in the
I
recording.
think it does come through, just like with Philippa. I think it comes through because of who she is and what she puts in to her writing. That's why, you know, that book, Normal Woman, was so good.
Yeah. Yeah.
That book is such a, excuse me, such a favorite among librarians. I mean, he's a huge supporter of libraries, has been to ALA, and I just love that you had that connection with Marin Ireland about the audio.
Speaking of ALA, I know we want to talk about a couple that are further out, but I thought it was really interesting to hear
Oh,
And this audio narrator will be at ALA, which we'll get to.
oh, lucky you, because Talon Laser is a superstar, total superstar. This was such a difficult book to read, and she pulled it off. If anyone's read the book, the narrator is horrible. She is horrible, but she also makes you question if you're horrible. And so there's this weird thing where you're like, she's terrible. I'm not like that. So you want to distance yourself. So how does someone like Helen, how does she read that? She doesn't want people to think that that's her, right? Because she's not that horrible. But boy, she nailed it. She brought every ounce of that character. I forget her first name now. June, maybe. June. Yeah, she brought every bit of June to it, and she did it in a fearless way. She totally owned the character. And I think that's why it was so successful, because she didn't shy away from it. You know, she was all in, which was quite difficult, a heavy lift. Kudos to her.
And she also narrated all this and more, the Punk Shepherd.
Oh,
So,
she did. Yeah,
she
that was
She
beautiful.
won
an award.
for the listen
Which,
list.
yeah, she won the Listen List award for that, so she'll be back at ALA to receive her award for that audiobook. She is wonderful, and she's so informative about audiobooks, and her talks are just great because they talk about rights and just a lot of the things that are critical to know about in addition to the experience of recording. Just really smart and so talented and lovely.
Mm. And Grace, you probably already did this. I don't even know why I'm asking, but you put the schedule link in there.
Yes, I did.
Okay, so the link to the ALA schedule with all this info is in the chat.
Mhm.
Just go to librarylovefest.com and it's pinned to the top.
And sign up for our buzz. Just a reminder, Saturday, June 28th.
Saturday morning. Yep, we're gonna be talking about a lot of books. It's gonna be a lot
Bright
of
and
fun.
early.
Okay, Susan.
else do we
you wanna
have?
Talk about the collection, the memories, or do you want to do Devil's Southpaw?
Mm.
Oh, or you can pick something else totally.
And they're all so good. How do you choose?
No, just pick any
Victoria,
of them. We're gonna
that's a
get to all of them.
Solomon
It's
like
10 to. We've got
decision.
10 minutes. We can get to it.
We're going this one.
Oh, I was so excited about this. I produced Brandon's first audiobook, The Removed, which I thought was gorgeous. I think his writing is extraordinary. And I wanted to find a fresh Native American voice for this book. And I listened to The Buffalo Hunter. Why can't I remember the author's name? I'm just having a moment. But
No.
It's Graham Jones.
Stephen Graham
It's
Jones?
Yeah,
Stephen
Stephen
Graham
Graham Jones. Oh, wow. So you can imagine that wasn't such a terrible bit of homework. And I really connected with Shane Ghostkeeper in his narration. And I have people like that. If this happens to me, they become like a white whale for me. And I'm like, oh, I really need to work with this person. And look at what happened. Brandon Hobson wrote a book and I was able to produce it. And I'm so tickled that Shane is recording it. So I have very high hopes for this book. I think everybody's going to really enjoy the listen. He's a musician, Shane, and he has that musicians, they have an ear. You know, I've worked with authors who also have an ear similarly, and they might, when they're recording their audiobook, it takes them quite longer than other people because there's, they have to hear it just right before they're able to move on, which I think that's fascinating. That those two things, they translate, they come through in audio. But this is going to be a beautiful production. I'm super excited about it.
I just
Beautiful.
want to say in the chat when we were trying to think of the author, all of the librarians.
They all
saying-
know.
And I was like, that's reader's advisory.
I love it.
Yeah, that's your people. What do you, I mean, I don't want to pick for you,
No,
but
the other, when I said white whale, it reminded me that another white whale that I've had on my list for a very long time is Steven Weber. He reads a lot of Harlan Coben and he reads some Stephen King, and I just fall into his narration. I think he's such a beautiful reader. And it came out that Peter Swanson had this book coming up, and I've always produced Peter's books. He's such a brilliant writer. It's been fun to watch him grow and change as a writer. And when I read this one, I couldn't help it. Stephen's voice was in my head. And I was able to engage him to read. And then I was lucky enough to direct him. And the listen is so good. It's a very unusual structure, this book. The thing happens, something big happens in the beginning, and then as you read, the history is kind of peeled back in time, and bigger things are revealed. And Stephen was able to bring the surprise that occurs in the text to his narration in a way that'll blow your mind, let's just say. It just won a nice Audiophiles Earphones Award, so I know I'm not the only one who thinks that this is a great book. But when I even hear a sample of this book, this is one of the ones that's going to stick with me for a long time. It's just pitch perfect, let's say.
Yeah, and Christina in the chat said listening to this now. So people are listening.
Yay, I'm so glad. I think we had an early listens too, so that was kind of nice.
Suzanne, there was another title, which you had just blew us away with your description of the audio. These memories do not belong to us.
This was such an interesting book. I'll admit, it took me a couple of reads to figure out how to produce it. It's about, it takes place, you guys probably, do people know this already?
No, you go ahead and tell. It's out in August, so we've been
okay.
talking about it, but please do.
Okay, so it's about, it takes place in like a global superpower. And in this setting, the citizens can buy and sell memories from other people and they transfer them. So you can imagine the setup is fraught. I think there are 14 readers on this, all these beautiful, beautiful readers. And I've heard the audio already, and it's just one of those ones that it was really good casting, if I do say so myself.
You can.
It took me a while. It took me about 2 months to cast it, but it's extraordinary because you've got people from many different time periods. And so weaving together this very complex, deep, profound, you might say, understanding of memory, and how that comes to play with when memories all of a sudden are currency, or at least for sale. It's kind of shocking. But yeah, the whole cast really came together and weaves through these extraordinary, they call them epics. And interesting, you could actually listen to them and you don't have to listen to them in the order that they're presented. A little fascinating. So yeah, look out for this one.
I think they call it like a constellation novel, like where you can,
Exactly.
I think that's so fascinating. And so I'm curious, when you're recording all of these, do you do them kind of all at once, or do you like do one?
We're very
person-
careful to share one person's performance with another, because we need to make sure if there is any overlap that, they're saying all the names the same way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fascinating.
That's a funny question, or not funny, haha, funny, peculiar. It reminded me that there was a book years ago called My Dark Vanessa.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
so
And
good.
and the time increments kept flipping back and forth. So we actually recorded it chronologically,
Oh,
right? And then cut it together the way it's meant to in the book. And so there are a number of reasons for that, because strangely enough, over the recording of a book, your voice in the beginning might not sound the same as your voice at the end. It's a very long process. It's difficult. You can be in a different place in your head. It's just different. And so to keep the consistency of the voice, we chose to record it like that. And I think it was a good idea. It worked
Yeah.
out really well.
it probably also helped to kind of hear chronologically everything that they're going through, because it's like, how can you not be kind of harried after all of this in
No,
your
that,
life.
and you're right about that, because, the performer has to stay within that character at
Mhm.
that time. So we wanted to make sure that also the character stayed that person. She didn't have to
Mhm.
reach for it. It was, this is who she is right now. And then this is who she is then, and then we cut it together. And so sometimes that does work.
Cause that's how the character experienced it. So that's so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, wow. Well, now people can listen to that audio and know it was
it's good.
filmed or taped a little differently.
Yeah, Grace Scummer read that.
Mhm.
Meryl's
Oh,
daughter.
Meryl's
Okay.
daughter, right, yeah.
Beautiful.
I know I had asked you yesterday to not throw you off so you would have it in your brain, but like if you're not even Harper, just like any audiobook, is there a narrator that you're like immediately listening to? Like immediate download. I will listen to anything they write or read.
I have a few of those.
Yeah.
I will listen to anything David Pitu reads. He doesn't read much
Hmm.
anymore, so I'm always like on the lookout. He read The Goldfinch years ago,
Oh,
years and years ago, and it's so gorgeous. That book, I started to read it and it didn't connect with me, so I put it down. Everyone kept talking about it, and I was like, really? So I started all over again, and I read it, and it's still in my top 5, in my pantheon of best listens. It's funny, like sometimes it's just not the right moment for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
You come back and you
I say that
experience it
all
in a
the
different way.
time.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, you like, I love this book. And it's like, honestly, I'm a different reader every day.
Well said.
It's not that it's the book, it's me sometimes.
You also now have prompted me with another thought, and that is that there are times, when I, as an employee, a project doesn't resonate with me. And so I keep trying and I keep trying until I can make sense of it, and it becomes something for me. And I always think to myself that there's someone out there where this audiobook is going to mean so much to them. So I'm very careful to get to a point where I'm giving it the best, and I can create the best audiobook program I can, because there is this fictitious person in my head, and it's really important to them.
Hmm.
And somebody, Christina in the chat said, not every book is for every person, right book, wrong time. And I think that's like, I mean, whether we do it consciously or not, we bring our own stuff into a book. And I think, we've heard
Absolutely.
writers talk about, there's what I wrote and there's what you're reading and how you think about it. So that's really
I
cool.
like that. I haven't heard that line, but that's true. And I agree.
there's a question here from Casey Davis. Not too long ago, I listened to an audiobook where the narrator read the N-word out loud, but it was beeped out. Who would make that decision to make that change?
That's an interesting question, and it does happen. So if I see that in the text, it depends on the book, and I have a conversation with the author, usually, but it's not typically one-to-one. There are a lot of times more than one person involved. If it's fiction and it's current fiction, I tend to ask them to bleep it out, because it's not fair to ask an actor to say that, especially these days, with what they can do. People that, nefarious people can do. I wouldn't want that out there with them, out there in the world. If it's reading, this happened with Black History. No, that's not the name of it. I can't remember the name of the book, but it did come up. It was an African American woman reading the passage, and it was a journal piece, and she chose to read it, and that was up to her. And I felt like that was
Appropriate.
thank you, that was appropriate. So every instance gets a thorough and considerate think, and it does depend on a lot of things.
That's really interesting.
Yeah,
That's a good question.
it is a good
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Also,
We had, well, comments more than anything about folks who are chiming in with their narrators. Tatiana Maslany, I think that's how you pronounce her name. Scott Brick. These are all folks that are Dion Graham. This is one of Joanne Froggatt. Just, answering the question, do we have any must
Oh,
listen?
yeah. Oh,
readers?
all those people. Joanne, she
Yeah.
was in Downton Abbey and she's a brilliant reader. I do love her.
Will Patton, Casey Davis just said, when we talked the other day, and we're gonna unfortunately have to wrap up soon, but we talked a little bit about when you are talking to narrators who, and everybody has a different approach. We don't have to say, we don't have to say who does what, but in general, sort of a general idea is like that some narrators choose not to read the book and take your direction instead. Can you just talk about that process? Because I find that fascinating that there's, there are different approaches, and if you can just talk about it a little bit.
Narrators.
Different, you mean how they're preparing to read?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Sorry, yeah.
No, you're right. That was me. Yeah, so some narrators, it's funny, the world is kind of divided, the audio world is divided, very much toward prep. And it's kind of fun, like to just drop that into a conversation bouquet and run and see what happens, because people are very opinionated about it. I mean, in some cases, it works, right? It works if the person reading is understanding the narrative as it's unfolding, and that surprise is really important. So there are moments when that's the thing to do. But it is the case that you run a risk. You might find out on, the 500th page that someone has a different accent. It has happened, not often, but it has happened. So it just depends on a particular narrator's personal workflow, I would say.
Yeah, like an actor, the way actors prep, because some actors cold read and
Exactly.
yeah. I
Exactly.
mean, narrators are actors.
No, they
Yeah,
are.
they are. So maybe that was a dumb thing to say, but they are actors.
No, I thought it was a brilliant thing to say, and our narrators are SAG-AFTRA. We work with union actors.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
Some more folks are chiming in with their suggestions, or just people that they love, narrators, Bonnie Turpin, and Will Wheaton,
Love them all.
and
Nice.
Sadie Smith. So this is great.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Love people's favorite.
think we're kind of at the hour.
Yeah.
Unless, Suzanne, there's anything else that you want to make mention of, or Lainey or Grace, before we sort of wrap up?
Well, the only thing I will say, someone mentioned Marcellus, the octopus. So I don't know if
Oh, the
it's our last
octopus.
book that if we just want to quickly give a nod to Marcellus.
We do love Marcellus. I was very fortunate to cast the book, and I directed Michael Urie, and that was an interesting conversation. How do you read an octopus without sounding like a buffoon? Like, how do you make that happen? And it's because Michael is so brilliant and such an accomplished actor that he managed, in my opinion, to give us Marcellus with no comedy. Like, it was he was an octopus. How do you do that? Well, he did. It's extraordinary. And I think that's part of the reason. I mean, not obviously all the reason, because it's such a beautiful text, but the audiobook is so successful because Marcellus, the way he read it, is pitch perfect again.
Yeah.
This person also asked, I don't know if we know this information or if it can be released if we do, but do you know if he will also voice?
I don't
Marcellus in the
know. I
movie?
was wondering the same thing myself.
Grace, what was the question?
They asked if
Michael Urie.
Michael Urie will be doing the voice in the movie, but we
Oh.
If only I knew. Yeah,
it'll be a surprise.
That person has a hard remit.
that's true. Whoever is going to take it on will be listening to the audio, I'm sure, a lot.
It really was just
Or he
perfect.
was an octopus. I don't know.
I remember Virginia, like, we had all read the book early. She came on, one of the first times she ever talked about the book, she came on our program, and it was really fantastic. And I remember the audio clip came out, just like the snippet, and Virginia was like, I know you were like, I've read this, but I can't stop listening to the snippet. You're like, listen to this.
That's the best.
It was great.
It was perfect. He's so droll. He's
Yeah,
just
he
this
is.
droll octopus. Oh my God, I love that book. Has been on the list, the bestseller list, but the audio is just as it's just a different life to it. You know, Jennifer Winbury says, I rarely listen to audiobooks, but the audiobook for Remarkably Bright Creatures completely sold me on the book. It was beautiful.
It was
I couldn't agree more.
You know, when
Nice.
he delivered that last line, I didn't think it was going to sound like that, and it changed everything. You know, remarkably bright creatures. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. That's a magical book. It's so unique.
It was.
You know, we're the first, I think, if not the first, one of the first interviews that Shelby Van Pelt ever did for that book. And it was really, really wonderful. She was, just, you know, still remains so lovely, but you know, just that whole, everything was just starting, and just couldn't find somebody who didn't love that book. So much in it.
debut, yeah. I mean, even at conferences now, they're like, I love this book so much.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Suzanne, I tell my books that they need to read a book written by an octopus. I tell my patrons that they need to read a book written by an octopus. Lisa Casper says it's still a top favorite of all mine, and I recommend it all the time. And someone loved Philippa, Beth Fallen said, loved hearing Philippa, great dialogue all around. This was a great hour. Oh my God.
For having me.
Philippa
I'm
Gregory.
so fortunate to talk to Philippa.
Oh,
Love that.
well, that was a gift. You know, that was really, really special, but also special is hearing from you, working with you, Suzanne, learning from you, and having you on today. People love audio, and hearing this, not just the audio books, but you know, what goes into it. The behind the scenes stuff is just fascinating, and hearing it from you, who is really at the front lines and doing the casting, and it's just really in there. It's just, thank you so much. It's treasure trove of information and just your insight.
Thank you. That was very kind. My niece is a librarian in Illinois,
Oh, yeah.
so this is for her.
Oh.
What library? Do you know which library she had?
You're gonna, and I can't remember. I should have looked it up beforehand. Sorry, Amy.
Amy, wherever you are, your aunt is a rock star. It's fabulous. So much love from everybody, and just, you know, appreciation all around for this really cool hour. So Suzanne,
No,
I
could talk
know.
about audio all day.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
got a comment that said, can we do this every day? And I was like, I wish I would do it every day.
See you tomorrow.
Okay, see you tomorrow.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you, Suzanne, Creative Director at HarperAudio, for all of your information. And of course, Philippa Gregory, BOLEYN TRAITOR, coming out in October. And maybe we'll have her back when the audio is inked. Wouldn't that be cool?
Really cool.
She said she would.
We're cashing in that check. We're like, excuse me, you wrote this on a video and we would like to cash it in for one appearance. Thank you. It's like one of those
She's so
coupons kids get you,
sweet.
like
Oh,
one
yeah.
visit to the Library Love Fest team.
What a lovely person you both are. Both our
Yeah.
guests today are just lovely.
great.
So, thank you. Thank you both. Philippa, if you're still watching, thank you. And everybody who did watch it. Wow. Yes, Lainey.
ALCs, we were gonna mention.
Go girl, you do it.
Just quickly, if audio is your thing, or if maybe you're getting more into audio, we have early audiobooks available. There's a program every season where they hand select 6 or 7, depends on the season and when files are in. But they do it pretty early, and it's on NetGalley and Edelweiss. So we'll put a link in the chat where you can kind of find out more. But there's also an additional aspect of that where a lot of the minus a few for some reasons, but a lot of the audio that releases, usually about a month before, will also be up on NetGalley exclusively. So you can listen about, by release date before on sale. So you get really quick access way before on sale to the general public. So take advantage of that. We can whitelist you if you work at the library, call us and or auto approve on NetGalley, and we'll get you all set up because we want you to listen to these great audios early and often.
Yeah, so I put the NetGalley link in the chat, so you can check
Thank
that
you.
out there.
That's great. Thank you, Lainey.
Yeah.
And again, if you're coming to ALA, come see us, come say hi. We'll be there with lots of galleys, lots of authors, and go to librarylovefest.com if you want to see our schedule of events. And we'll be back after ALA to tell you all about it. If so you weren't able to attend, not to worry. Again, big thanks to Suzanne Mitchell, and big thanks to Philippa Gregory, and big thanks to all of you for watching.
Yeah. And we won't be here for July for Galley Gab Fest, but back in August.
We're
Go.
taking a break.
Yeah.
I like it.
Great.
All right. Well, bye. Bye, Grace. I can't see you. Just put
Oh,
your head
well.
in between there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, she's there. Okay. Take care, everyone. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.